We weren't even trying to get it that exact.
I know. Hi, y'all. Welcome to For the Love of God podcast.
For the love of God.
We're so excited to be here. This is our first episode, so bear with us because we don't really know what we're doing. And I'm sure most of you are moms and family and friends, but we're excited that you're here.
Yeah,
we're excited to be here. The one person that it might reach. I'm Regan. I have a 5-year-old little boy, and I'm currently engaged, getting married in December. And I'm just excited to share my heart with you guys and to have you guys share your hearts with me.
Cool. I'm Mallory. I have been married for, I think 12 years. 12 years in December. I have a 7-year-old and a 9-year-old. Excited to be here and to get started finally. To the podcast that I never thought we'd actually
we're here,
make
though.
it to.
So, just a little bit of background. I have been praying for a while, kind of feeling the Lord stir up something in my heart of wanting to do more, having a lot to say. I have a lot to say all the time, whether it be opinions or just thoughts or things that I have dealt with or talked about in therapy or with my mentors and my spiritual directors. And I always just struggled finding a place of like, how do I fit in to building up the kingdom and the church in my role as a professional? I work full time. I'm an accountant, a CPA, don't do taxes. Don't ask me about tax questions. And a full-time mom, and just like, you'll get to know Mallory and I and our kind of our hardcore personalities, our strong-willed type A personalities. And so I just felt like the Lord was calling me to go that route, to talk about the things from like my point of view and all of the things that shaped me and molded me and still shaping me and molding me and my struggles and how much I don't know what I'm doing, but how much I'm not alone in this. And I think Mallory, that's where Mallory and I connected of like, wait, you too? Me too, like kind of thing. And so you're going to hear a lot, me talk about Father Sibley a lot. He is one of my biggest cheerleaders and has really helped me to put into words like all the things that have gone through my head for the last, 15 years. And I was talking to him about just the struggles I was having, and he was like, man, you should start a podcast. You should talk about this. And I was like, wait, I was thinking about that, but I was like, I don't want to be too mainstream, right? Everybody's doing podcasts nowadays.
It's the millennial thing to do.
I don't even listen to podcasts. Literally, I've never listened to a podcast in my life, and I'm going to start a podcast. Like, I didn't want to be like too trendy, you know? But then the second thought, I'm like, I kind of like being trendy. I kind of toiled with it, and I was like, man, I don't know. And I was just going through it, kind of pushed it aside. You know, all the fears came in, which we'll talk about. But Mallory and I met through Acts at church, and we were having our, at the time when we were doing, what is it?
Pearls. Wait, what did we call ourselves?
Prayer pearls.
Prayer pearls. We learned how to knit.
Shout out Tyrell. Tyrell taught us how to knit. And, drinking wine, knitting our little squares that came out like
crooked.
Yeah. And, I said, I want to start a podcast. And Mallory turned to me and she's like, what? I want to start a podcast. And I was like, wait, this is so much easier than trying to talk to yourself. And so we just kind of started dabbling with the idea, and here we are now.
Here we are.
Through
all the struggles. I feel like there were so many times where Satan is definitely trying to stop us in our tracks.
Yeah.
The technology hoops that we had to jump through to figure out how to make all of this work together, but we're here.
I know. I wish we would have videoed us setting up our setup, because we would have the best bloopers.
Yeah, probably so.
We went back and forth on text message, but it's kind of one of those things where you're like, is it just a dream? Like, is it something that we're just like talking about but never actually do? Finally, we were like, okay, we're going to go to lunch, and we're going to I'm going to get to the bottom of Mallory. Like, I'm going to feel her out, and I'm going to figure out if we're serious or not. And we went to lunch, and then we started talking about what's been going through our head in our prayer and a lot of our fears and how that was playing into us being hesitant to jump all in. And we literally were on the same page.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
and I think that we were both struggling to find a space that made sense because we both struggled with a lot of the same things. So we were raised in a time where we as females were pushed to do anything that the men could do. Both are in professional careers. I'm in a very male dominated industry as an engineer. And so there aren't a lot of people who talk about that. I feel like, it is a different juggling act to be a mom and work full time and still try to be a good Catholic and all of those things. And I feel like in our little niche, we have very unique problems that come along with that and trying to make it fit. I always think about, there's a book, I always get it wrong, is Having a Mary Heart in a Martha World. Is that what it's called? And I think about that a lot because I 1000% always relate to Martha in that story. And that's where I think we sort of connected in that. And it's hard to be a very headstrong type A female and then read the Bible and you're supposed to be humble and meek and quiet and gentle. And like those words don't
sit
really...
in the front pew with a veil on, homeschool your kids and all those things, which is so good in all of its glory. Or, even to like live a servant life of not having a whole lot of things or not driving nice cars. I just bought a car yesterday. And things like that where it's like in our mind, because how you and I and so many of you probably have this perfectionist tendency. We want to grow closer to Jesus and we want to, be the best version of ourselves. And so I think we fall into these traps of, hey, well, I want to be perfect at that. And in order for me to do that, I need to sell all of my things. I need to, homeschool my kids or not let them watch their tablet or, all these things in its nature is good. And we should do some of those things, right? But we overcompensate because we don't find what's really us. Like, what is it that the Lord is calling us to be? And, we don't have them yet, but I am a Joan of Arc girl. And it's like, be the Joan. Like, Joan of Arc fought in a time where women didn't even speak. And I'm kind of exaggerating, but being the Joan. And so now this world and in this time, it's like, Regan, find what the Lord is calling you to do in all of your strengths and all of your weaknesses and in your workplace with everything you have to offer. Don't try to fit a mold that doesn't exist. Because at the end of the day, the Bible and Jesus is not asking us to fit a Bible character's mold. Truly. It's just that's kind of how it's been interpreted or how we have interpreted it, really.
Trying to check all the boxes. Right.
And so, we kind of just clicked on that. And as I was going through the motions of my safety net is to ask people slow introduce the podcast, right? My safety net is to throw it out to people, fill them out to see if I'm going to fail too much. And as I was doing that to try to get affirmation and reassurance, so many women were like, God, I would so listen to that, or we need that community, or I don't fit into those. These podcasts are going on, or groups, or I don't even know what other words. I'm not trying to just fit in this podcast bubble, but we hear these things, and while they apply to some groups of women and some groups of people, we still have this disconnect, And so many women validated. I was like, you're not alone. And thank you for telling me that I'm not crazy.
Yeah.
And I'm not alone. So
what's funny is you say you just kind of throw it out and see. And in my mind, my way of protection is I'm not telling anyone. And I may not even share it until I'm super confident and comfortable with what we're doing, which goes back to the perfectionist way of thinking. And A big thing that I have had to come to terms with the podcast is we are doing this because we feel that God is calling us to do this. And so what does success look like? Well, I can't measure the success of this based on how the world would measure it, which would be
1 million followers on Instagram
and likes and ad breaks and all of those things, because we're not doing it for that.
Okay. But it's so crazy though, because you and I both, like when we sat Episode1 and we're going through, like, just, I'm an external processor. So, like, I just process things by talking things out. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of times while I pray out loud, too, because I just feel like I'm being more productive. I also find that's how the Holy Spirit works through me. But we were talking Episode1 and we were kind of talking about some of our, like, struggles. And we were so aligned that it's scary, because it's like in your own brain, you think you're so alone, but you're not. And, you know, it sounds so silly, but where my brain and my insecurities and my struggles took me is that, Regan, don't even waste your time doing this podcast, because you're not going to ever hit 1 million followers or
Bethany Frankel views.
Or,
yes.
Don't even waste your time. And it's kind of humbling to think and remind myself it doesn't matter.
No.
It doesn't matter.
No.
If I, you hear it, it's kind of cheesy, but if you reach one person, then that's what your place was. And as much as I say that out loud, it hurts me to say that, because I'm like, no, of course not. Of course I want to be successful. Of course I want to be the best at it. That's one of my gifts. It's like one of your gifts. It's why we succeed in our career. It's why we do a lot of things well. It's because we naturally have that desire to be the best and to do things at a high standard and a high level. And so while it could be our biggest strengths, it's our biggest weaknesses. So to tell me and Mallory, say it's okay if we have one person listen to the podcast, it might hurt my heart a little bit, but it's fine. I'll get over it,
I'm trying to really keep that in perspective, that the Lord's going to take this to the person that needs to hear it, or people that need to hear it. And that's what really matters, because that is why we are here.
Right.
But I agree. It can be paralyzing to have this personality type, because I don't want to do something if I can't do it 100% perfect execution. Then I'd rather not do it at all.
Yeah.
And I think
we need a jingle. We need a logo.
Right.
We need the setup. We need this. And no, just slow down. Focus on what your purpose is, and then everything else will fall into place.
And to be fair, we got stuck in that loop.
We did.
Quite a few times.
It's kind of why we're here, because it's been how long do you think we've been talking about this?
Months?
Probably since January, really. January, February.
Mm-hmm. When was our Acts retreat? In
October 2022, yeah. So, but it was all after that. It's probably the beginning of this year, truly.
Yeah.
That we started talking about it, and now we're in. This is. Bear with us, because now I feel like you can hear me, and you couldn't hear me when I turned this way. But we're in almost September, and it's truly only because we got stuck in our own minds of things we want to share and talk about, of being afraid, and the devil doing a lot to stop us.
Yeah.
Truly. So we kind of went through, and I'm a big words are powerful. That is one of my main quotes, and something that I truly try to live by. Words are powerful. And I heard someone say this, and it kind of shook me to my core, of the Lord made Jesus, God made Jesus Christ incarnate by a word. He is the word of God. And it just shows you how it's intended. Words are powerful. We talk about, if you read all the Bible stories, Jesus says take up your mat and walk. He doesn't put your hands on and do that, and he can, but no, he says take up your mat and walk. Or in church, when he says say the word, Lord, and I may be healed. Say the word, just the word, and obviously you can break that down into a million different ways, the word is Jesus and all that stuff, but say the word and I may be healed. We say that every time we go to mass. And I'm just so I try to remind myself of words are so powerful, and I don't really truly believe of what people say, manifest it.
Oh, I hate talking.
That's not what I'm getting at.
I could do a whole episode just on my issues with manifesting.
No, that's not what I'm getting at. But we are taught and are told, ask and you will receive. Like, just say it. Lord, in Jesus Christ's name, please send us some freaking rain.
And you know, like, interesting about that is that the world, like, what are we taught as children? Sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. Yeah. We're literally taught the opposite of that our whole lives. Maybe that is why some people are able to so freely and easily spew such negativity without a second thought.
But
because
that's also part of the reason why, like, in our core, if you think about times in your life where you have been hurt the deepest, it's usually because someone said something to you or about you. It strikes a different place. Like, words are that powerful. You know, like, you can destroy someone with words. Yeah. And bullying, a lot of times bullying is not physical.
Yeah.
A lot of times bullying is simply verbal. And so I can go on a tangent about words are powerful. Like, sometimes in people's prayers, like, Jesus will act, like, give you a word or that could change somebody's life. You know, like, it truly has an impact. And so you can just pay attention to it now, because it, like, you'll slowly start picking up on, like, words are powerful. And so also why, like, I think, like, naming your kids are important. Not using profanity so much, because I'm guilty of that. You'll be the first one to say that. But it changes something in your mind, right? Speaking truth and speaking in a way that is positive, like positive thoughts, positive words can change your moods. Like, speaking about yourself positive, like, all those things go into words are powerful.
It's been years now at this point, but a few Lents ago, when it was time to decide, like, what am I going to do for Lent, I made the decision that I was going to switch my radio in my car to K-Love. And at the time, I listened to just very mainstream stuff, but I have always had a, like, deep love for rap music.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Yeah, you are.
Oh, yes.
See, I'm not.
So you want to talk about, like, the most vulgar, just not great things to be listening to, but man, I like it. So making that switch was very difficult, especially because at first, when you switch to a whole new genre of music, I don't know any of the words. I don't recognize any of the songs. It felt really cheesy at first.
Some of it is.
It is, yeah. But man, it was, I don't want to sound like I'm exaggerating, but I'm not. It was transformational for me to switch what I was listening to. Because you spend so much time in your vehicle, you don't even realize it, between bringing the kids to school, picking them up from school, bringing them to practice, all the, going to work, leaving work, all the things. And so you don't realize, or I didn't realize, how often I was putting things into my mind just from the radio. And making that switch to always hearing praise and worship music, and even the broadcasters on K-Love are always talking about positive stories or good things that happened. It changed my whole day. It changed my outlook. I was in a better mood, and I never went back to regular radio. Where it really cemented was when my kids started singing the songs.
I was about to say, there is not much more better whenever your kid is in the backseat, like, praise and worshiping.
Oh, man. And they know the words. Or even when...
That's when they go little shits to you, and you're like, see, like, I did something right here. Like,
checking my box.
Because you're usually an asshole, but man... It's something right.
Well, and even when the radio's not on and they start singing one of the songs just from memory, it does something to me. Oh, man. I challenge everyone to give it a try. I tell everybody that, I would have never probably stuck with it if it wasn't Lent and I felt a little bit more of an obligation to get this done, right? I would have switched right back. And there were days where I would rather sit in silence than listen to the music. And now...
And that's when the Lord was, like, probably laughing at you.
Yeah.
I don't know how this came about, because, in the morning times, I listen to the Bobby Williams show. I like, that kind of stuff. But I, for a while now, really have been a praise and worship kind of girl. Like that's kind of all we listen to. And I remember when I first met Zach, and Zach, it's always been something that I was hesitant to me. You know, you meet a guy and you're like, what kind of music you listen to? Oh, about that.
Caleb.
Listen to praise and worship. And I meet Zach and we go on our like first date, and Zach is just as much like rough around the edges as I am. Very, how would you describe Zach? Very extroverted, you know, just
honest.
Yeah, all the things we love about it. Yeah. And at our first date, and he was like, so, like, what kind of music you listen to? I actually don't, like, think I'm weird, but, like, all I listen to is praise and worship. And his face just, like, dropped, and he says, are you kidding me? That's all I listen to, too.
Really?
And I'm telling you, that's all we listen to.
Wow.
Either that or, like, old school stuff, like Journey. So I was like, I love you. Here we are.
This is it.
But like it was so crazy, and that was something very recent for Zach, because after he went on his Acts retreat and had like his conversion, so say, it was something like he started to pick up on, because he was needing something that like just the passiveness, like
right.
you like needed something that was a little bit more positive, and kind of for a while he used it as something that like helped him pray, you know.
Yeah.
And so it kind of just helps develop things like that. But this is not where I plan to go with praise and worship, but I'll never forget, like I had a bridal shower at my house for one of my best friends, and Zach and I were maybe a month in, and he had come over to help me like get things done, like move tables and just help, because you know that's whenever they want to help you, because it's so fresh. Now they're like, bye,
figure it out.
And I was like ironing my dress, and there's like praise and worship on the Alexa like throughout my house, and he's doing things. Man, like truly, this is like what I dreamed of.
Yeah.
No, don't get me wrong. Our relationship's not all like roses, but it was just like something that to say people surprise you.
Yeah.
You know, and it does do something to you. And like Augustine, that's my son's name. Augustine loves praise and worship, and he knows almost every song, and he'll just like bust out and like throw his hands up, and it like truly does something to you.
Yeah.
But I was saying all these things because this is the tangent we went off on. Is whenever we were talking about the podcast, and I was praying about it, and I said, Lord, if this is your will, like if this is something that you want us to do, name it. Give me a name for it. Yes, of course I'll participate. Like I wasn't like really waiting for him to spell it out to me in the clouds, but you got to name it, because for me, naming it, like putting a name on it, makes it real. Like it gives it a substance, and that doesn't even make sense, I don't think. But anyway, it kind of just names it
concrete. It makes it real.
Like it makes it whole, and it also is a way I can feel like, okay, Lord, thank you. Like here we are. This is our child. This is where we're going. You know.
Right.
And so we went through the process of naming it, and we got to For the Love of God. And I know you're thinking, and it was our first thought of like, for the love of God. You know, people use it, and it's like, you know, we shouldn't. And it kind of goes against
like a negative connotation.
The second commandment.
Yeah.
So that's the difference between Mallory and I. I have a couple of very, very, very conservative Catholic friends, and they have my heart. Like, don't get me wrong. But again, I'm putting the hook out. I'm like,
What do you think?
What do you think? You know, let me down easy. And one of them said, I don't know, it kind of goes against the second commandment. And of course, what we talked about earlier, oh shoot, I can't do that. Like I have to be perfect. I can't like going through, you're right. Again, we have to be perfectly pious, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even know, because I'm not trying to talk down on anything, because differences make the world go round. But I found myself, I didn't think it was anything wrong with it. We weren't doing it out of like any kind of
negative.
Yeah,
obviously,
yeah, and obviously, like as people hear us talk, you obviously know that we love Jesus, and that's what we're here for. But it just shows you, like, I'm like, shoot, maybe I am being a little too rough. Like maybe I am being a little too progressive or worldly, you know. And of course, so I go to Father Sibley. Hey, what do you think about this? Do you think it goes against the second commandment? He's like, I don't think so. I'm like, me either. Thank you.
Done.
But seriously, if Father Sibley tells me to jump off a bridge, I probably would. But like we started playing with it, and like we had some good ones. Let me see. What are some other ones?
I don't remember, but
we had.
I'm trying to remember what our like next.
Hear Me Roar. That sounds like a Katy Perry song. Now
I think
that
it
I
is.
think about it. Hear Me Roar. Esther. We like Esther. Esther and Joan. We almost did Esther and Joan because we are about being the Esthers like in the world and the Joans in the world.
I love Esther and everything she stands for and her fear to not.
The doers.
She didn't have fear to step out and go against the grain and go against what was popular and worldly, and she did what was right in the face of all of that.
Yeah. We had two, like TOO, because you're like, we're too loud, too this. I'm like, like I'm not being a part of the Me Too movement.
I didn't think about that.
But talking out loud. But then I was like, Mallory, that was the thinking out loud was the name of my first dance song, my first marriage. I was like, can't do that.
Oh yeah, no.
Just Hear Me Out. I like this one. That was a good one. Like, just hear me out. Like, just hear me. I have good intentions. I might come off a little strong, but hear me out. The Whale. We did like The Whale a lot because the whale.
Oh my gosh, you're saying the well, like WELL, and it like sounds to me like
fish.
Whale, and I'm like, I don't remember that being an option. The well.
The whale.
Like the woman at the well. Yeah. Jesus is the well. You could take that in so many different directions.
You can.
Yeah, I think that's why we like that
one. I like it, and I think it's, So we like had this list of all the names, and it was a shared notes, and in the middle of the day, I would see Mallory just edited it, and I was like, what is it? Like, this sucks. Okay, try again. And so Mallory actually came with it. She sent it to me in text. She was like, "For the love of God," in all caps. I'm like, oh my gosh, I love it. That like perfectly embodies like us. Like, yeah. Because on the soft side, like, of course, like everything we do or everything I try to do is for the love of God.
Right.
But also a little bit like rough around the edges. Like sometimes I get frustrated. Even I get frustrated with the church and I get frustrated with the teachings and the hardships that come with it. And as we go along, I'm sure we'll share parts of our stories, and there's times where I'm like, for the love of God, like, why am I having to do this? Or why am I having to, so like, it kind of just fit us, our personalities perfectly.
Yeah.
But we're still trying to find a way out, really. Yeah. And so, I kept praying, Lord, like, just make it known. You name it. And that was the time where the song, is it Andrew? Who sings that song?
It's terrible that I don't know who sings it.
I'm so bad at that, though.
Me too.
It's called For the Love of God.
Yeah.
And it was just starting to come out on the radio. Not to the point where like it was playing every like round. And literally every single time we would talk about it, or I would leave the Adoration Chapel praying about it, or at the perfect times, like both Mallory and I, it would pop up. And it would like be playing when we got in our cars.
Well, and I remember you saying it came on and Augustine knew the words, and you were like, what? I didn't even know you knew this song.
Yeah, because it was so new. And my child has a talent though of if the melody is easy and repetitive, he doesn't really know the words, but he can like pick up on it and sound like it, but then you listen closely and he's not saying the right words at all. It was just affirmation after affirmation. We're like, okay, now it got old. We're like, okay, Lord, see ya. Yeah, we got you. You know, whatever. And so here we are with the For the Love of God podcast. Yeah, I think just like words, are powerful, and it might sound contradicting because I am talking about words are powerful, so we should try to like talk in respectful manners, but also at the same time, just because something's said in a way that the world might take it, doesn't mean we should cancel it. We might have more to the story.
Right.
We might have intended it a different way. It doesn't mean that it's bad. It's the same thing with others. It's like, and with you, it's just coming to the realization that just because you might have a desire in your heart to do something that is out of the ordinary, or is something that you would think that the world might look at, or, even the Catholic or the Christian communities may look at you like, I mean, that doesn't really fit into X, or you should do it this way, or people are going to judge you. If you have something to say, or if you have something that you feel like the Lord's doing it, do it. Mm-hmm. The people that are going to receive it are going to receive it, and the people that don't
weren't meant to.
Yeah.
And I think too, kind of the flip side of the name is, for me, it also embodies a little bit of a struggle that I have, because for so long I felt like I had to follow the rules and check the boxes, and everything I did was to receive the love of God, as though it was something that had to be earned.
Right.
And that's still something that I struggle with today, is that it's there.
And this is something we're going to go into, I think, next week. God doesn't need us.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't need us to love him.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't need our love. Like, he desires us to love him, but he doesn't need us to. And we don't have to earn his love.
Right. But as a type A, I want to be successful. I want to do everything correctly. I want to follow all the rules. I want to be the best and, make all A's. And
I was never an all A student.
Really?
No.
That's shocking.
Really?
Yes.
I was not. Anybody you talk to that knew me back then or in college, I was the kid that never studied, never did homework, always just made good grades but didn't really care.
No, I had to be at the top. So it's hard to make that transition. And especially, honestly, especially with the Catholic Church, that's something that I've struggled with a lot, is because sometimes it can feel like there's a lot of rules that you have to follow and a lot of steps you have to go through. And for someone who already feels like you have to do that all the time, and then the church is telling, so
yeah.
I've fallen into that trap more times than I'd like to admit.
I love that you say that, because y'all are all gonna see that Mallory is more on that side of the fence of the feeling that way, especially as we go into church teachings and things like that. And I am a stickler for the church teachings, and I love the church teachings, and I think but it doesn't mean I don't struggle with them. So it's a good conversation.
Yeah.
And that's what we plan to go to. So I know today was a lot of just introductions and kind of talking about how we got here. That was our intentions. But we do plan on going throughout the weeks, and as long as the Lord takes us on this journey of going into topics like that, like hard church teachings or hard worldly topics that we struggle, our relationships, both friends, marriages, kids, our poor fucking kids, and just kind of talking through those things through our lens and through our eyes. But the biggest part, and I think Mallory would agree, is we're looking to engage a community. We're looking to engage an audience. My hopes and dreams for this is truly an interactive experience. I would love more than anything for us to eventually get to the point where you guys are reaching out to us, or maybe we do live call in guests and an open dialogue. We would love for you to send us your questions or your comments or your feedback, or hey, what y'all said was totally against.
Yeah, you're wrong.
You're wrong. Let's talk about it. Part of the reason why we're here is we're tired of sweeping all of these hard topics underneath the rug, and we want to embrace them, and we want to work through them and expose them, especially through the feminine eye and heart. And so just know that we love you and we're praying for you.
Yes.
And please reach out to us on Instagram, message us, send your love, send your hates, send your questions, send your ideas, your feedback, all the things. We're excited.
Yeah.
We're excited.
Excited and open to wherever this
So for the
goes.
love of God, go be your Joan. Go be a Joan in the world.
Yes. And your Esther.
You're Esther. Until next time.
Bye. Thank you for watching, listening, all the things. Goodbye. Oh.